Even though J. Cole is a pillar of modern hip-hop, what might surprise you is how unhappy he was when his career first took off. He started from humble beginnings with a desperate desire to become a rapper.
People in the audience can MC.
And he did everything he could to get on. But when he finally started to succeed and his dreams of becoming a rapper were granted, what's interesting is that J. Cole was unhappy. He was constantly being accused of being too boring, and fans weren't happy with his early music either. It wasn't until J. Cole's third album, 2014 Forest Hill Drive, that he finally hit his stride. But why? What was the problem early in his career? What did J. Cole do wrong that he finally changed and adjusted? Well, when you break down the production on his early albums, you can hear that J. Cole was making un-J. Cole music. Here's what I mean. After years of endless rejection, he eventually became the first artist signed to Jay-Z's newly found label, Roc Nation. But here's what many forget. This was actually a mismatch at the time. On J. Cole's early mixtapes before he got signed, he cemented his sound using smooth, soulful samples and instrumentation that had hints of inventiveness. But the problem was Roc Nation was originally planned to be a pop label, and J. Cole knew this at the time going in. And when you listen to many of the early J. Cole beats, you can hear how this mismatch influenced his music and pulled him away from making music that his fans loved on his earlier mixtapes. Often J. Cole would miss the mark on his beats, either in one direction or the other with his early commercial releases. Let me explain what I mean by this. A perfect example is the beat for Sideline Story off of his debut album. Hey, I'ma put us all on the map. Going in and ain't looking. When you listen to the production on this song, the best way to explain it is that it's overly safe and conservative. For example, the main sound is this straightforward piano playing a straightforward pattern, a straightforward guitar, to go along with a straightforward bass line and some pretty typical drums. And that's pretty much it. Missing are the unique sounds and elements that would typically appear. Straightforward sounds, straightforward patterns, and this is one problem we see time and time again with his early commercial releases. Now let's compare this to a beat that was on his much more well-received 2014 Forest Hills Drive, the beat for Hello.
And I thought about the things you used to say, and I thought about the games we used to play.
And let's break this beat down. We start off with a straightforward piano pattern with this beat once again. Some straightforward strings underneath. But beyond this, we start seeing some risky production decisions. Take a look at this drum pattern. Here we have these snares with an unusual placement, and claps being used in a way that you don't see often. We also have this hi-hat with this insanely weird pitch modulation on it. And a fast-paced kick and bass pattern. So here, even though this beat starts off with the makings of being yet another overly safe conservative song, we see some creative decisions that instead push the beat to feel more progressive. This is an example of J. Cole eventually correcting his mistakes of shooting too far one way and getting closer to the bullseye finally. But like I mentioned, overly safe decisions aren't the only problem we see in early J. Cole production. Often, we also see the polar opposite, like on Cole World.
And they say that's flattering, but I ain't flattered at all. Matter of fact, y'all need to practice that more.
Here, we see him veering away from his core sound once again. First, we have these trap drums. To go along with this synthetic bass. And this main loop, which is not soulful at all, it's far more digital and video gamey. There isn't a single soulful element or instrument in this beat. Here we have a beat that's very pursuant of what was popular at the time, the early 2010s synth style. But again, in his later music, we see him do a much better job of this, like in Tale of Two Cities.
Hands in the air now, hands in the air, run it, hands.
So here we have another beat that's influenced by the predominant sound of the time, which is trap at this point in time. We have these trap drums with this wild hi-hat pattern. a truncated trap 808 for the low end, but here's what's interesting. Listen to the main sound for this beat. As per Vinyl's producer of this beat, this sound is actually a stock FL piano with some distortion on it. So here we see J. Cole using production that doesn't veer too far into what's popular and away from the core instrumentation he's known for, even if it's a more experimental version of what we like to see in his beats. And this is why I say 2014 Forest Hills Drives is likely considered his best album. He consistently hits the target in the middle and doesn't veer too far one way or another like he did in his earlier music. So how did this happen? What actually changed? Well, in this interview, Cole mentions how he eventually decided to make a shift. He stopped caring as much about the external and appeasing critics to end up on their top 10 lists, and it really shows in his music. He finally started to make music that was true to himself. So let me know what you think in the comments. Are you a fan of J. Cole's earlier commercial releases, or do you agree that he's gotten better as time has gone on? By the way, feel free to like and subscribe, and check out the video next to me if you enjoy these kinds of beat making videos. And other than that, I will see you next time. Bye bye.